The first snow didn't fall, it arrived sideways, banded and bright. And a voice on the radio steady, unfamiliar. Somehow, already mine said my name like it was a handrail. Roman, do not block the ER ambulance loop at door C stage on Erie facing east. I'll have warmers, albuterol, and hot packs ready. I drive a wrecker they call Blue Ox because she pulls like old stories, 35-ton underlift strobes that turn whiteouts into suggestions. My name is Roman Alvarez, 32. Southside kid who learned winter on buses and porches. Now a tow operator on night rotation for a company that sleeps less than cops. My cab smells like coffee, chain grease, and the rubber bands I loop around my wrist when I need to remember to breathe. Chicago in January is a contract you sign in good weather and reread when the lake starts riding sideways. Most nights, it's math and patience angles, curb weights, wheel lifts. Traffic that believes in itself too much. And then a band spins off Lake Michigan, and the whole city becomes a test. By 2017, the forecast's flurries had put on 30 pounds. Lake effect feeder fired up like it had something to prove. Visibility down to, if you can see the next taillight. Marriott, I-90/94ths, was a rumor. Lower Wacker, a freezer. Ohio feeder, a negotiation. Calls stacked in the tablet-like arguments. CPD wanted a jackknife cleared near Doman. A sedan had tried to use a snow berm as philosophy on LaSalle. CTA buses were making improv decisions. I kept the ox between the lines and listened. That was when the voice arrived. Noah, he said later, but over the radio he was just calm, turned into syllables. Roman, it's Noah Kimma triage at Northwestern Memorial. Door C is our clean lane. Please stage eastbound Erie, cone, a corridor, and do not leave a windrow at the ambulance cut. Divert your walk-ups to door C. I'll have blankets, ketone strips, and charging. And Roman, thank you, he said my name like a handrail, something solid in the exact place you need it. Copy, door C stays clear. I'll stage on Erie, I said, and Blue Ox groaned like approval. I took Erie in first gear with my strobes, doing their little sermon. The snow had found a tempo. Down left, a drummer with a grudge. On the corner by McClurg, a Civic's front end confessed to a light pole. The driver sat inside on the phone with the quiet voice people use when they're trying to pay attention to two fears. I angled, chalked the rear tires, and slid the J-hooks like a card trick. You okay? I asked him through the cracked window. He nodded, like he meant maybe. We'll get you warm at Dorsey, I said. He blinked because he hadn't known doors could be promised. But the thing that would stick under my ribs hadn't happened yet. Blue Ox and I cleared the Civic into the bed like we'd practiced. And I idled toward Erie while the band thickened from white to white, that argues. The ER loop glowed that rectangle of light architecture makes when it's trying to be a verb. Volunteers in vests moved like a nervous system. And there, under the awning, the radio made into person. Noah Korean American. Early 30s, charcoal scrubs, under a Navy parka badge on a lanyard that had survived things. He was shorter than I'd built him in my head, and somehow bigger. He scanned the truck, the Civic, my face, the world, in one smooth intake. And then he was already counting respirations on a man whose jacket had failed him. He asked, "Tone already sure we were on the same team, Noah?" Something in my throat did the elevator drop. Stage eastbound, flashers on, Kona Lane. Anyone shivering hard or wheezing goes to triage. Anyone who says I'm fine but holds their ribs gets a chair and a hot pack. Coffee is inside, and it forgives. He said it like a checklist and a kindness. Then he handed me a paper cup that steamed like a promise. "Sip," he added. "You sound like a man who hasn't remembered to be a throat in an hour." I laughed, and it came out like a cough with opinions. I built the cone corridor, slid the bed down to make a little windbreak, and watched the snow try to climb it. Chicago Fire rolled through with a tone that makes you stand up straighter. CPD shepherded a group of pedestrians who decided Ontario offered better ideas than it had. I kept my lane open like it owed me money. Every few minutes, Noah would materialize at my elbow with a question that doubled as inventory. "You okay?" he'd ask, like policy. "I keep being I'd answer, like ritual." He'd nod. "Me too." The Room Street awning. Winter lifted a half inch. The radio bared its teeth. Multi-car on Lakeshore Drive, southbound near Chicago. A spinouts into the barrier. No injuries reported. Traffic snarled. In Chicago, Lakeshore is where the lake decides to speak directly to your axles. I took Grand East, Columbus North, eased onto the drive like a polite thief. The world narrowed to the lane, illuminated by for cars had decided physics was a rumor. Nobody had hit the third rail of a story, yet no blood, just pride. I wove the ox into a position that meant visible and useful. Set the winch, and talked like I had time. We're going to clear one car at a time. Your job is to be cold but unhurt. We'll get you to door C for warmers and phone chargers. The lake is doing a show. We're not invited. A woman in a parka that had learned humility said, "Is this normal?" "It's January," I said. Normal's a fleece with opinions. I cleared the first two, left the third, pointing the right way, then the fourth. When you do it right, a pileup becomes for mistakes that don't know each other anymore. Noah pinged me as I rolled. "You good?" "Keep being," I said. "Me too," he answered. And door C felt like a memory I'd been planning. Back at the loop, Noah had built a small civilization. Chairs for the stubborn, blankets for the brave. Albuterol for the wheeze-prone. Insulin coolers labeled with names, the kind of love that sticks. A social worker passed out gloves like confetti in reverse. A kid in a bull's hat took charge of the charging cathedral and announced returns like a DJ. Sanchez 84%, Harris 62%. People laughed, like that's the new language of mercy. Wait, don't miss this detail. Someone had taped a sign to the automatic doors that said, "Breath is a bosslet, it work." You could feel lungs deciding to obey. Then generator coughed, stuttered, and lied. The lights dipped, the heater made a sound that should be left to woodwinds, and a CPAP screen blinked like a car trying to start in high school. The room looked at Noah and waited to be told what it already knew. He didn't raise his voice. He just rearranged time. Phones too low power, unless you're calling family. CPAP and O stay on this circuit. Chargers slide to B if it breathes, C if not. Public Works is bringing diesel. Roman, do you have an inverter in that metal cathedral of yours? 2, I said. And a splitter I only introduce to people I trust. Introduce away, he said. We ran a cord like a handshake between professions and bought 20 minutes of breath, while the generator remembered what sorry was for. When the heater exhaled, hot on our ankles again, 4 people cried without sound. Noah patted the heater twice like it was a dog that had found its name. The snow relaxed for 20 minutes and lied about being done. CPD brought in a man whose hands were doing small earthquakes. Noah shook a chemical warmer, tucked it under his fingers like a spell, and said the sentence that saves people in rooms. "You're not failing. You're cold." The man nodded, like permission had weight. But the truly shocking part hadn't happened yet. M's two-toe came a voice that was wind-burned and hopeful. "We've got an ambulance stuck on Superior at the alley, rear wheels glazing on ice. Patient is stable, transport delayed. Can you give us a nudge?" On snow nights, nudges are the closest thing to sacrament I practice. I slid the ox into the alley like an apology, and watched the rig trying to reason with physics. We set a soft pull-no jerk, just steady, and I felt the line go from hope to work. The tires bit. The rig moved. The paramedic put 2 fingers to his temple the way people salute when the world doesn't need more noise. "Door C," I told them. "They have warmers and someone who remembers names." On the way back, I caught 2 teenagers doing the brave, stupid calculus of walking a plow berm into traffic because it looked shorter. I idled beside them, window down. I know the shortcut that doesn't end in a headline. Get in. I'm literally a truck. They climbed in the ox's jump seat and tried to be cool about being warm inside the loop. Noah met the teens like a teacher. Who knows how jokes work? "Hot cocoa is a behavior we can reinforce," he said, handing them mugs and giving me a look that made my sternum behave. "You okay?" "I keep being," I said. "Me too," he said. He placed a hand on the back of a chair, in a way that makes furniture trustworthy. I don't know when exactly my hands remembered. They were mine, and not Winter's maybe around the time a woman with an eczema patch on her cheek started laughing because her phone hit 90% and the kid at the charging station announced it like he'd just won a primetime slot. Maybe when a volunteer labeled an insulin cooler Patel in block letters like God intended. Maybe when Noah leaned over to adjust a spacer for a kid whose asthma had opinions, and the kid said, very seriously, "This is Kevin." "Excellent," Noah answered. "Kevin is a good ally name." I thought the villain was Snow and Torque, but it turns out the next decision was electricity in disguise. "Citywide to all," the radio said, trying to be casual. Asterisk, asterisk, we can re-energize a segment on Superior if no water at the bus stop shelters and no downed lines reported. Tow or a Kenya confirm. If you guess wrong in winter, electricity turns physics into punishment. I walked to the curb and did the math with my eyes. Slushy edges, spray, shelter roof dripping onto a puddle the size of a question you don't want to answer. "Deny," I said, standing water at the shelter. "Stay dark until Public Works can salt and push water." "Affirmed," the voice said, and somewhere a decision did not become a headline. Noah looked at me over the rim of a paper cup and gave the smallest nod I've ever wanted to frame. He asked again when the room had learned to be a room. "I keep being," I said. "Me too," he said, and the phrase felt like a bridge we could drive trucks across. Near 110, the band lightened from argument to confession. Snowflakes fattened into things that land and apologize. I did a loop around Superior, Fairbanks, Erie, Relit, a few Z where a cone had walked off, pulled an Altima backward 3 feet so a bus could do its job. The city's pulse steadied, plow passes got wider. Sirens changed key. Someone in a condo decided to shovel in a way that was more commentary than help. I parked the ox under the edge of the awning to shake snow off the chains and ended up shaking off more than that. Noah came to stand next to me like we'd earned an inch of world we could borrow. The ER doors feathered open and closed in a rhythm you could photograph. Behind us, someone snored, someone whispered, someone counted breaths without knowing they were doing it. Noah had a flake melting on his eyelash like a decision. "We held it," he said. "It held us," I said. He smiled. Then he did the thing the cameras will know before the city does. He leaned his forehead to mine for one beat, PG-13. A security camera above door C rotated like a cat with ethics and then minded its own business. We stepped apart because a volunteer yelled Noah with the tone that means now and a clipboard that only obeys his pen. Timing likes theater. We didn't exchange numbers in a meet-cute way. We exchanged roles and then rules. He put a spare spacer in my center console because kids named Kevin are everywhere. I put an extra roll of gaffer's tape in his supply bin because labels are love when the room is tired. We made a rule. When NWS paints bands over the lake, he texts here. When IDAT declares wreckers requested, I text me too. He keeps a tea bag stash for when coffee stops being medicine and becomes habit. I keep a Sharpie he likes because his handwriting is polite and looks good on coolers. A day later, at CHICAGOOEMC, posted the recap. Plow maps, call volumes, a photo of a tow line going from Hope to work, and people standing under door C with blankets like medals. The last slide was a grainy CCTV, still from the awning to silhouettes. One in charcoal scrubs, one in a heavy coat, foreheads inclined for a heartbeat. The caption said, "Small, honest, enough." Noah pinged my phone like a doorbell. "Dinner, always," I wrote. "Good," he replied, "because I am. We ate JJ at a spot on Argyle that understands January and keeps the windows fogged like a favor." He told me about triage math how. Don't make perfect, make safe is a slogan and a blessing. I told him about toe math axle weights, toe points, center of gravity, and the time a guy asked me if he should try to just gas it, and I had to take a breath before saying words in the order I wouldn't regret. He told me his mother still texts wear a hat. I told him my father taught me to double-check chains because love is redundancies and winter is an exam. We didn't call it anything on paper for weeks. Just kept practicing the inch under awnings across a city that forces you to learn manners. Nights kept offering us drills, a plow that slid and needed to be unembarrassed, a bus whose rear doors froze and had to be convinced by science and kindness, an elderly man who tried to walk 2 blocks to a pharmacy because he misunderstands wind. Noah's voice in my ear. Asterisk, asterisk Roman. Do not block Huron. We have a blood product run. Bring them Erie eastbound or Roman. Are you okay? I keep being. Me too. Sometimes the ritual is the job. On a clear night in February, Wabash sounded like a city, pretending not to be cold. Noah and I ended up beneath the awning because we knew how to find awnings now. A busker tuned up something that might become Sam Cooke. A plow driver honked like gratitude. The world wasn't in crisis. He wore a knit cap that could have caused legislation. I touched the rim, and he let me. We didn't need the camera for that one. We kept it. Where did you learn to make no sound like a gift? I asked, stealing his phrase and handing it back nicer. My Halmione, he said. She could end an argument with a look and make you thank her for it. He put his hand over mine on the cap, like consent written neat. And triage. If you can tell a room the one true thing in a sentence, you can make it behave. I move cars. You move hearts and lungs, I said. You move rooms, he corrected. With cones and chain and bravery, you never name. We didn't pick a schedule because winter laughs at schedules. We made a rule you can tape to a dash. If the lake starts talking, we answer. If the radio says our names, we say here. If the door needs to be a definition, we make it one. He carries tea for me. I carry salt for him, literal and otherwise. He tells me do not like a blessing. I tell him bring them to Dorsey, like a promised dot. Sometimes the safest place in Chicago isn't behind a plow or under heated lamps. It's the inch between two foreheads under a hospital awning when the world remembers it, knows how to be kind. Sometimes it's a voice on the radio that says your name like a handrail and then gives you something to hold. I'm here, I say. When the radar paints blue on the lake and the cameras tilt to see if we'll behave. Me too, he says. And Blue Ox rumbles like agreement. The snow will come again. It always does. The bands will thread between towers and turn the river into a rumor and force taxis into arguments with their better selves. Noah will stock warmers, and I will chalk tires, and Dorsey will become a doctrine. We'll answer the radio and each other and keep the lane clear because someone is going to need it. Small, honest, enough.